In today's lecture, we're going to talk about MAC addresses, but before we talk about MAC addresses, I want to do a quick overview of what a MAC address and an IP address is. So for any device on the network, it's going to have its own address, so anything else on the network that wants to communicate can reach it and communicate, and its address is going to be a MAC address and an IP address. So the MAC address is the physical address that's actually a unique identifier that's burned onto the network interface card that's never going to change. And the IP address is an address that's assigned to it by the software, and that can change based upon what network you're on. So just remember, the MAC address is a physical address, the IP address is the logical address. So now let's talk about MAC addresses in detail. So again, the MAC address is called the Media Access Control Address, and it's the actual physical address of the network adapter. And so what do I mean by the physical address? Well, I mean it's an actual unique number, such as a serial number, that's actually burned into the card itself. So on the actual network card, it's an address, such as a serial number, that's never going to change. And when we're talking about a MAC address, when we're referring to the OSI model and the TCP/IP model, we need to understand what layers they associate with, because we're always going to be referencing back to the OSI model or the TCP/IP model. So for the OSI model, it's going to be layer 2 address. So the MAC address is going to be operating at layer 2. And for the TCP/IP, it's going to be operating at the network interface layer. And the reason I brought this up now before we go any further is we're going to be discussing this later. And I want you to kind of start to get this in your head and start to get into your memory that MAC addresses operate at OSI layer 2, which is a data link layer, and MAC addresses operate at the TCP/IP network interface layer. Because once we start talking about those different models later again in the course, it's all going to start to click and make sense. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's get back to our discussion on MAC addresses. Okay, so getting into all the details. So remember that the MAC address is an actual address that's burned onto the card and is unique. So what's the formatting? Well, it's composed of two different parts. There's a first part and there's a last part. And it's composed of 6 bytes, which equals 48 bits. Now the first 3 bytes, which I have listed here in blue, these are going to be what's called the OUI, which is considered the organizational unique identifier. And so, for example, every single different manufacturer of network interface cards, whether it be a company like Dell or HP or Apple or Belkin or Linksys or any of these companies, they have an OUI that's associated with their network interface cards. And those are handed out by an organization called IEEE. And the IEEE is the one that holds onto these and manages these different unique identifier serial numbers, and they say, okay, Dell, you can use this, HP, you can use this, and so forth. So with that said, when we're looking at these, the OUI is going to be the first part. It's going to be the first 3 bytes. And that's going to be a total of 24 bits. And for a total of 24 bits, I have it listed down here. So we're talking about 24 bits. It's 2 to the 24. And so we can have roughly 16.7 unique different manufacturers of network cards. And they can make a total of 16.7 million network interface cards before they need another OUI. So this is always going to be the same for the manufacturer. However, this is going to be unique. And I'm just going to say U here for unique. So every single network interface card built by a manufacturer is going to have a unique serial to it, and that's going to be the last part. And I listed up here duplications are rare because each manufacturer, when they get one OUI, they can make this many different unique MAC addresses for devices on the network. 16.7 million. So here's a question. Has Dell produced 16.7 million computers? Probably not, but maybe close. What about HP? What about Apple? Maybe. Out of all of them, probably Apple, because they have iPads, iPhones, iPods, laptops, desktops, servers, you name it. So what happens when they run out? What happens if they use up all 16.7? Well, they simply go back to IEEE and say, give me another OUI. And they'll give them another OUI, and they'll use that, and they can use that for another 16.7 million. So if you think about it, that's a lot of unique network interface cards that we can have on the internet. But that's the formatting, and that's how it works. Now, for those of you that just want to understand how networks work, you don't have to worry about this. But those of you that want to go out and you want to get your CCNA or your CC and ENT or your Network Plus, you're going to have to understand this because you may get asked these questions on the exams. So let's talk about determining how you can find out what your MAC address is. And so let's jump to the next slide. Well, it's really simple, and I'm actually going to do a live demonstration in 1 second. But let me go ahead and show you how it works. So let me go ahead and get my highlight tool ready. You would go and open up your command prompt. So if you have a Windows machine, you go to Start. And if it's a Windows 7 or greater, you would just go down to the very bottom Start menu. And where it says Search Programs, you would just type in command.exe. If you have Windows XP, you'd have to go to Start Run and type in command.exe. And then that's going to pop up for you. And then once you get there, you're simply going to put in this information at the command prompt, ipconfig /all, and then it's going to output a whole bunch of information. And this right here, where it says physical address, this is going to be your MAC address. And what you'll notice, and let me change my color on here so you can see the difference. So we'll make it green. This first 3 numbers here, that's the unique identifier for the manufacturer. And this is off of Dell, so this is going to be Dell's unique identifier. And then the second portion, and let me change that to white. Hopefully you can see it. And it's not too dark. The second portion over here, the 93FA9D, that's going to be the unique number for my actual network card. So let me go ahead and let me pull up a command prompt. And let me bring it over. So I'm going to go ahead and type in command prompt, slide it into the screen. And we'll go ahead and make it a little bigger. So you would type in ipconfig /all, type enter, and it's going to output all sorts of different information. Now, lots of computers now are going to have more than one network interface card, so we can actually look them up. But I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to my Ethernet card, which means this is my local card that connects in with the network cable. And you'll notice here, and let me get my screen draw ready again, and we'll highlight this. So let me highlight this, and we'll go ahead and we'll do green again. So here's my physical address for my Ethernet card. And then for my Wi-Fi card, again, I have a different one. And so let's find that. Here's my wireless card for Wi-Fi. It has a different card, and here's my Ethernet address here. My physical address, sorry, not my Ethernet address, and this is our MAC addresses. So here's my MAC address for my physical connection where I plug in with the network cable right here, 3417EB730FEF. And then for my Wi-Fi card, my MAC address is 34DE1A14FBF9. And you'll notice that the first 3 numbers, the OUI, are different. And if we think about that, why is that so? Well, maybe they have more than one OUI and they're using different ones, or they outsourced. I am on my Dell laptop right now. Maybe they outsourced the Wi-Fi card or the Ethernet card to a different company, and that's their OUI. But anyways, that's MAC addresses. That's your quick introduction. I hope it was beneficial. If you have any questions, let me know. If some of it doesn't make that much sense, just go back through the lecture and also reference guides on the internet. So I didn't go into a 30-minute presentation on MAC addresses, but I did my best to be thorough without going into too much information. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next video.